Hmm. Hey, good evening, you guys. This is Quadria Marie of Scholar Media. Thank you for joining me this evening via my Facebook Live. I'm here each and every Monday, 7:20 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time. Today is Monday, June the 13th, 2016. First off, I want to thank everyone who's given me a call or a text or sent me any messages or commented on any post of mine here on Facebook in regards to the loss of my great aunt Lou Jean. She passed away this Saturday afternoon. I was there along with other family members, including her son and his wife. We were all there by her bedside. I actually got there with my mom 45 minutes before she passed away. They told us that she may not make it through tonight, and she didn't make it through that afternoon. Hey Kyle, hey Mom. Thank you guys for joining me this evening as well. And I do feel blessed that I was there to at least see her go. That was my first time ever experiencing something like that. So I definitely won't ever, forget that. God bless her as well. Hey, cuz Fifi, how you guys doing? Good to see you on here as well for this evening. Thank you, Kyle, for letting me know that I'm coming in loud and clear. Hey, Adrian. Yes, Kyle. I am feeling a little better. I wasn't sure this morning if I should have went into work, but I thought that was better than me just sitting at home overthinking like I normally do in these type of situations. So thank you for that. I also want to mention I had some friends text me that they're sorry that they can only say that they can send out their prayers and condolences, that they felt like they wish they could do more, and my response to them was that was enough. That's all you needed to say or do. And I understand, dealing with grief myself and being on the other side of that, having a friend who's dealing with grief, not knowing what to say or do. And, that's normal in these situations. So sometimes just sending your love out to someone is all that, they need, having that connection with someone. But very quickly, I want to send out my prayers and condolences to those victims of the Orlando massacre that occurred over this weekend. It's the largest mass shooting in U.S. history. So I want to send out my love to their families and friends as well. And in light of that, and the fact that it's also going to be Father's Day next weekend. Hey, Tanisha. The fact that it's going to be Father's Day next weekend is really not one of my best days. I'm glad it's Sunday where I don't have to go to work on that day. So in light of all of these losses that occurred, and that's also coming up for me, I just thought it made a lot of sense for me to switch things up for Scholar Talk and deal with the topic of grief. So my topic for tonight is dealing with grief and the different stages of grief, symptoms of grief, as well as healthy ways to cope with it. So please bear with me if you guys are commenting and saying things. I may not get to all of the comments and things, but I do see you guys are there. It's just that I have a good bit of information and notes. I actually almost have 3 pages of notes that I'm going to go through quickly so that I get this information out to people, anyone who's on here now or anyone who might watch later who may want to share this with others dealing with grief, because this weekend has been a lot of losses. I had friends who lost grandparents and who buried grandparents or nieces and nephews and things, along with the loss of my aunt. So it's just been, a lot of that. So I said it's time. It's something that I unfortunately have a lot of experience in, but sometimes you go through things in order for you to be able to help the next person. It's not always just for your sake. Sometimes it's meant for you to have dealt with something in order to help the next person. So that's my idea tonight, is for me to help others, and that's my idea pretty much for any of my Scholar Talk shows. And like any of my other talk shows that I have, I always do a little bit of research before I come on, and I just add my own two cents to every topic. I did check out this website called helpguide.com. You guys see me turn my head, it's because I'm reading my notes that I was doing today at work when I was supposed to be working. But of course, I wanted to get this together because I thought this was so important. But the website that I was reading from is called helpguide.com. The bulk of my information I'm going to share is from their website. And like I said, I will be adding my own tidbits to this. So I hope you guys are listening, and I'm hoping, that it does help someone else out there who's dealing with grief and loss. But first, very, very fast, I just want to say, what is grief exactly? On the website, they describe grief as a natural response to loss. It's the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone you love is taken away. The more significant the loss, the more intense the grief will be. Most people associate grief with the death of a loved one, of course, but any loss can cause grief. Some examples of that is divorce, miscarriage, selling your home, the loss of a friendship, losing a job, even the loss of a dream. These are all examples of grief. Also, a subtle loss, such as even graduating from college. I experienced that a little bit myself. I mean, I was blessed to have social media where I was able to connect with friends from college. Tanisha says, speaking from my experience, I lost two grandmothers, one on February 29th this year, and the other on March 16th. I still have my days, but what gets me through is having my great connection with a prayer life and praying family and loving friends who kept me smiling, laughing, and love. Yes, and I'm actually going to bring that point up later as far as how to cope with grief. Having friends and family there is very, very important to have that support system there. The next thing I want to discuss very fast was the 5 stages of grief. 5 stages of grief. It was actually developed by a psychiatrist in 1969 by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. And these 5 stages of grief, they have fluidity to them. There's no end-all answer to this. It's just like a general guideline I want to share with you guys. Kyle says losing a loved one is never easy, especially ones that's real close to you. It's going to take a long time to get over it. And yes, that's very true, but grief is also very individual as well. So I want to get into that a little bit as well. Hey, Tanisha Sensberg, thank you for joining tonight. I'm just getting into what is grief exactly and the 5 stages of grief. The first stage of grief is denial. And for example, that's like saying, this can't be happening to me. And to me, this is something that happened to my mom when my grandmother, her mother, passed away in 2002 when I was only 17 years old. The first few days after my grandmother passed, my mom was basically walking around as though, she was still here, like nothing happened. Like, I mean, of course she knew my grandmother was gone, but she was still walking around, saying everything, is okay, everything's gonna, be all right. And, she was saying in a way as though my grandmother was still around. And, that was tough, that, like I said, it lasted just a few days. Thank God it didn't last for a long period of time, but she experienced the denial stage for sure. My cousin Fifi says, very difficult, but it shows how strong you are, and that time is of the essence. Yes, definitely time is on your side, but what's important is how you utilize that time. I don't necessarily believe in that time heals all wounds. It's what you do in that time. I mean, you could have 10 years go by and not work on your grief and not accomplish anything. So I do agree time is of the essence, but that is important that you actually do something in your time to help heal yourself, especially when it comes to grief and loss. The second stage of grief is anger, and that is asking, why is this happening? The third stage of grief is bargaining. Make this not happen, and in return, I will blank. So people like to bargain with God sometimes. If I do this, can I have this, this person back? The fourth stage is depression. I'm too sad to do anything. And the fifth stage is acceptance, saying I'm at peace with what happened. And, it is natural to experience all these emotions. I also want to point out that not everyone is going to go through all of these emotions. And you may not even go through all of those 5 stages of grief in that sequential order either. So I want to definitely point that out to people. Also, if you skip one of those stages, it doesn't mean that you're not healing properly either. So I want to say that. Some people, like I said, they don't even go through these different stages. So everything is very individualized to you. Another important point that I want to point out is that we're all different. We all grieve differently. So you have to be patient with yourself, and also patient with others that are dealing with the grieving process. Sometimes, everything's always in a rush. We're always looking at a timeline. There is no timeline to healing. For some people, it may be months. For some people, it may take years to deal with the grieving process. And, that depends on you. It depends on your faith, your lifestyle, how you cope with different things. We're all different. Even the nature of the loss itself, that determines how you're able to deal, or how long you're able to deal with the grieving process. And like I said, everyone's individual. We all go through different things. So excuse me as I'm still looking through my notes, because I want to make sure I get all of these things out. I am reading you guys' comments. Thank you, Mike, for joining. Kyle says we got to be real strong to keep our heads up through a loss and keep it together. Yes, and it's the keeping together part comes from when you are working, not working, but having your group of friends there with you to help you. Crystal says, hey, cuz, thought I'd check you out. I'm proud of you. Thank you, cuz, for coming on. I'm going through the different stages of grief, the 5 stages of grief, as well as other little tidbits I'm adding right now, too. I would like to say if you are going through grief, that is something that you have to face. You can't ignore it. I hear people say that all the time, just ignore it, put it to the side. But then, of course, in the end, all that pain and hurt is still there. So it's, unfortunately, it's something we may not want to do, but it's something that you have to attempt to. You have to try to face it. Also, it's okay to cry. You guys know I'm always crying at just the drop of a dime. And I just want to bring that out, that it is okay to show your emotions, to show, how you feel. And also on the flip side, it's okay if you're someone who doesn't cry. Some people take that as someone who's not having any sign of emotion, that they're not affected by the loss of someone. But keep in mind that just like love, everyone shows love in different ways. Everyone shows pain and hurt in different ways. So just because someone's not crying, it doesn't mean that the person is not feeling the loss of that person. And again, there's no time limit to grieving. Please, out there, anyone, please don't let anyone tell you that, it's been 6 months or it's been 8 months or a year, that you should be over it, that you should move on from whatever loss you felt, or the grievance of a loved one or friend. So just please keep that in mind. Again, everything's individual. We all grieve differently. As I said before, please be patient with yourself. If it's a friend or family member of yours, please be patient with them. Please do not tell them that it's been this amount of time, that it's time for them to feel a different type of way, because, again, everyone is different. Kyle said, that's funny because I never saw you shed a tear before. Yeah, I'm always crying. I actually did a video post about my friend Lisa this past weekend. I was doing it right before going into work, and I thought I can be strong and just get through the video post talking about her, and I just broke down this week. I believe Tuesday last week, I just broke down crying right on Facebook Live. So that was my first time, I think, doing that here on Facebook Live, but I had to, someone wrote that I had to release some of that. I had a lot in me as far as her death, so shout out to my friend Lisa Marie as well in heaven. She's up there with everyone else that's that's not here, with my Aunt Eugene as well now. And part of me feels good knowing that they're still here, just not in the physical form, but they're still here with us. Now I want to get into some symptoms of grief. I had a friend asking me about this as well. He wasn't sure if what he was experiencing still was a sign of grief. So I just want to get into that quickly. The first one I think pretty much everyone's aware of is shock and disbelief. It's that initial profound feeling you have when you find out that someone's passed away, whether whether it was a car crash or someone was in the hospital. It's that initial reaction of shock and disbelief. Sometimes you actually can go numb. You might not cry or do anything. You might actually go numb. The second stage is sadness. It's obviously a very profound symptom that everyone experiences. You feel lonely, empty, a lot of disparity in that stage. Adrian says, what gets me through grief is the memories we share. I get teary-eyed as I go through pictures and often think what life would have been like if they were still here. And, I definitely experienced that as well. That's actually something that they mention on this website, helpguide.com, about ways to keep someone memory alive is a photo album. And, I always go through old relatives and friends who've had, moved on. And I look through the pictures and I just, of course I get teary-eyed, but as well. And I feel sort of joy knowing that that I did have that special time with them. So, and of course you always wish that they were still here, but as I said before, they are still here with you. They're just not here in the physical sense for you to call them on the phone or to go to the beach with them or to the club. Some of us club heads and things like that, or they're not here, but they're still here in the sense that you can still talk to them. You can still write them. You're not sending it directly to them, obviously, but you can still speak to them in certain ways. And that's just from my own experience. The third symptom of grief, I actually have 6 here. The third symptom of grief is guilt. Some people actually feel what's called relief, and they feel guilty about feeling relief as such if you were taking care of someone who was seriously ill. People have that guilt feeling that this person is no longer here now. Maybe they were a burden as far as you having to take care of them or having to cut out certain parts of your life just to be able to take care of them. Even though this was a loved person and you wanted to take care of them, some people do feel a relief of that. Another thing that people feel as far as guilt is not saying or doing something that they felt they should have done or said to that person before they pass. And I pretty much think that's almost everyone. Anyone that you have a close relationship with, you always feel like, oh, I should have said this or I should have done this. But of course, you never know when that person's going to go, and that's not a good thing to hold on to yourself, because that can carry with you obviously the rest of your life, worrying about what you could have said to that person. And that goes into my fourth symptom of grief. Anger, feeling injustice, feeling resentful. Some people actually feel resentful towards the person who passed too. Sometimes we forget about that. It may not sound nice to say, but people do have that. They feel anger towards God, of course. That's a big one. I myself, I felt anger towards the doctors as far as when my grandma Lillian passed away, because my grandmother went in to the hospital with a cold, and in a week's time she passed away. So it was almost like someone passing away in a car accident. It was that type of suddenness that came from it. And I was very upset, thinking, well, why couldn't the doctors have done this? And maybe they weren't watching my grandmother, they weren't checking her blood pressure. Who did this? It was just a lot of that, and I'm still kind of dealing with some of this, but because time has passed and I've gotten mature and things like that, I don't stress myself as much about it, because there's obviously nothing I can do. She can't come back right now as much as I would want her to. And I used to have that, not even towards necessarily God, but I was really pissed at the doctors. I'm like, these doctors, they don't know what they're doing. For years I had distrust against doctors. Even now in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm going to the doctor, but they're humans. They're not 100% able to do anything. So almost in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, what's the point of me even trusting these people, going to the emergency room or wherever? Because I feel like in the end, it's still determined by God. It's not determined by these doctors. I feel like the doctors are helping hands, of course. They are here to help save lives. So I have gotten a little better with that, but because of what happened with my grandmother Lillian, I still have that slight distrust in believing that a doctor can do everything possible. So maybe that's something I had to deal with. I'm still in my own grieving process with her, even though it happened in 2002. Okay, Clifford, thank you, Cliff, for joining. Thank you for saying sorry for your loss. Cliff says my 20-year-old son died in November. His birthday is June 19th. I'm sorry for your loss as well, which was also Father's Day. Yeah, and you've been having a hard time with it. I seem to think about him every day. And again, I'm very, very sorry about that. I didn't know that you did have a 20-year-old son. I'm, of course, here to send my love and condolences to you. I am hoping that what I am talking about this evening will help you with this, because it's not just for someone who's just felt a recent loss or a 10-year loss or a few months. I do want to be able to help anyone who's going through this, and you just lost your son, obviously in November. This is very, very recent, and I'm definitely hoping that this here can help you, that you can go back and listen. And of course, you can always contact me personally and talk to me. I've been through the grieving process. Obviously, I haven't lost a child, but I lost a parent. I lost friends and other relatives, and I do know something about helping those in the same situation. Cliff said he overdosed on drugs, dealing with a lot of anger towards him. Yeah, that's one of the things I mentioned, and it's definitely a symptom. It's not something that I personally want you to hold against your son. I don't want that to be something that a memory that you're holding on to, because I'm pretty sure your son, you definitely had other positive memories of him, and I would rather you have those in your mind and not focus on the ending. Don't focus on the tragedy of his loss. I'm not a doctor. I'm just speaking from personal experience dealing with grief. I don't want you to focus on just how he died, but I want you to focus on how your son lived, even the good and the bad together, because you can't just have one and not have the other. But I don't want you focusing just on the last memory of him. Don't let that be the last memory of your son. Tanisha says, I'm back. I have to eat. Yeah, I'm always eating myself. Cliff says, thank you so much for allowing people to get things off their chest. And that's definitely what tonight is for. Even all of my Scholar Talks is for people to get things off their chest, especially when you lose someone and you lose them in a sudden way, such as an overdose. That is something that's very dramatic. It's not something that you get over. And as I mentioned before, please don't let people tell you that a certain amount of time has passed, that you should just move on. With everything, you should be at this second stage of grief or third stage of grief. Everyone is where they need to be. As I said, everyone is an individual. We all grieve. We all grieve differently. I mean, in Cliff, in your situation, this was your child that you lost, and of course, that's a loss that you will never 100% ever be healed from. So please don't let anyone tell you that whatever. You have to do things the way that you feel and in your own time. As Tanisha said, grief takes time, and that's definitely true. I do want to get back to my other symptoms. I do have some other things I do want you guys to hear, especially you, Cliff, as well. The fifth symptom of grief is fear. As I mentioned, worries and fears, feeling, anxious and helpless. I actually, again, to bring up an example of myself, again, with my grandma Lillian, I lived with her from the time I was born up until her death at 17. So that's why I keep mentioning her. She helped raise me after my father passed. I lived with her and my mother. So this is why I keep bringing her up. But even at 17 years old, when my grandmother passed away, the first thing, one of the first things I thought of was, how are we going to pay rent now? And I mean, I honestly almost hate to say that, but that was my reality, because my grandmother was paying paying a certain amount of rent. I was only 17, so obviously I wasn't able to contribute like I would have wanted. And my mom now all of a sudden had everything on her. So I was thinking about all the responsibilities of that, along with the loss of my precious grandmother who raised me for 17 years of my life. So I was dealing with that and just feeling like, wow, how are we going to be able to pay certain bills? So luckily we had a landlord who was there, who was trying to accommodate with us. We did have to move into a smaller apartment. Thank God it was there. But he did work with, my mom. Obviously, he was close to my grandmother as well. Tanisha says, I lost my high school best friend in 2001, and now it's 2016. I still have my moments of sadness. And honestly, you always will have those the moments of sadness. Even in my own life, everything is a roller coaster with me. And it's like that for a lot of people. A lot of ups and downs. There is going to not be a one period of time where you just have symptoms here, and then a year later you don't have any more of those symptoms. You have something else. You're always going to have a mix of emotions. And of course, over time, those difficult periods that you had at first, like for example with you, Tanisha, when you first lost your friend, you had those difficult moments at first, like I said, the shock and the disbelief of everything that happened. And even though time has passed, and you don't have those initial feelings anymore, you're still going to have those feelings of sadness and even those feelings of joy as well when you think about your best friend. So God bless her. God bless your son as well, Cliff, in heaven. I don't know if you believe in that, but I do feel like they're both still there. The sixth symptom of grief is the last symptom I'm going to talk about. It's having physical symptoms. And I'm pretty sure you guys, have felt this as well, because I have. Some examples are fatigue, weight loss or weight gain, insomnia. I had a little bit of that this weekend, nausea, and even having aches and pains across your body. Those are all symptoms of having grief. So if you see anyone else having these symptoms, they may be experiencing grief if you're aware of a loss in their life. I do want to get into what I talked about briefly earlier, which is healing, healthy ways to cope with grief. And the first one, and you guys mentioned it before, is support. Getting support from your friends and family, talking to people, having faith, praying, meditating, going to church. I just went to church yesterday. Zion Baptist Church in Newark. I went there. I prayed at the altar. It was my first time going, me and my mom, and I was there holding hands with people. I spoke to, the different reverends and the churchgoers. They were all very welcoming. So it definitely helped heal me a little bit more than I was even the day before. My Aunt Eugene, she was an avid church-going lady. So part of me did go because of her. I was also invited to go, and I was already planning to go yesterday anyway. And of course, with her death, I felt like it was only right for me to have gone and name her and to get some healing as well. Clifford says he needed a good church. I did, like I said, I went to Zion Baptist Church, and they were very good. It's right down the street from my house though, but I said let me go. I promised someone that I would go, and as it this happened, so I felt like I had to do it, and it was only good. Church is usually always something positive, because we're always all going through something. We always need prayer, and as I said, support, people there to help console us, to give us advice, and just being there, someone to listen to as a clergyman. And I thought that was important. Another point that I want to point out is talking to a therapist or a grief counselor. And people sometimes look at the ideas, you're talking to someone, that means something's wrong with you if you're asking for antidepressants and things. And let me tell you right now, from experience of having talked to different psychiatrists and psychologists for different reasonings over the course of my adult life, definitely do not frown upon it. It's definitely something that should be looked up to. To me, it's based on your relationship with that therapist. Sometimes you are connected with someone and it's not the right fit. So then you just have this whole fiasco of saying, you know what, the hell with the whole thing. I won't ever do this again. But it really boils down to a person that you're able to share your deepest thoughts and feelings with. If you're obviously not comfortable with the person, it's not going to be a good match. So make sure it's someone that you actually can talk to, and it's very, very beneficial in most cases. Tanisha says, I know how I lost my firstborn son at 14 weeks 6 years ago. Tanisha, I'm sorry as well for that. I actually mentioned how even a miscarriage can be considered a loss. So I definitely know in that situation it is a true loss, and grief and loss comes in so many different ways. Even though your son wasn't here long, he's still your son. I mean, the rest of your life you are always going to say he is your firstborn son. No matter how long he was here, it's the idea that he was here, and even you mentioning him now is special to me, because you're recognizing that, you know, he was here, he was a part of you, and you're always going to be his mom. So God bless you for that. Thank you for sharing that. So, oh, you said they refused to treat me. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that, because I know how it is with the doctor situation. That is definitely another topic in itself. But I'm sorry, that did happen. I'm hoping it wasn't something that, could have, been prevented. I also see things as, how do I say it, as they were meant to be. I have a cousin who actually had a miscarriage, and she was dealing with that. So I can empathize with her in that sense, as well as with you with the loss of your son. So I'm definitely very sorry, I'm sure, as well as anyone who's on here and anyone who is listening. Tanisha says, when they wanted to compensate my mother being a Christian, turned it down. Do you mean what exactly is compensate? I'm sorry, I don't have children, so I don't want to be or sound ignorant, but I am actually on here learning as well. I kind of think I know what you mean, but if you can explain more to that, because I don't like to hear stories of that, especially with mothers and their children and stuff. So if you want to, you can share more on that to help enlighten the rest of us here that are still learning and stuff. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. They wouldn't help pay for your loss. Wow, that's very terrible to hear. I'm very sorry about that. So I'm guessing now there isn't anything that can still be done as far as in that situation. I don't know if you have any children of your own now. I know you mentioned before about someone else with kids, but I'm not sure if you have your own children. But I do want you to know that your son was still here, and he's not just was here, but he's still here with you. And that's one of the biggest things I want to come out of this, is that when you lose someone, no matter how short of a time or ever how long of a time they were here, that person is still with you, be it a son or daughter or a mother or father and stuff. Tanisha says you do 3 girls now currently. God bless you for that. 3 girls is tough to have. I know how females are, all the different personalities. So God bless you for that. I am happy that you were blessed to have those three precious girls in your life as well. I don't know if you're trying to have any more. 3 is is a good bit to handle. Even nowadays, 1 child is a lot to handle in this world. So God bless you for that. Thank you for coming on as well and sharing your story as well, because it helps me and it helps others when you guys do come on and share. And I do want it to be also a release for you guys. Someone mentioned this earlier, as a release for you to get to get things off your chest, because sometimes you don't have no one. And as I said, it's important to have that support, someone to talk to, at least get out your feelings. Oh, okay. You sound like grandmother on both sides passed. Yeah, so have both of mine, and I still deal with things. I'm still going through these symptoms of grief myself, and different stages of grief, and I definitely know how it is. It's bad enough when you lose one, and then when you lose the second one, it's just like, okay, I don't have that grandmother's love anymore. Grandmother's love is definitely its own special type of love as well. Tanisha says her father-in-law passed away shortly after her brother lost. Wow, I'm very sorry to hear that, and it definitely hurts more when you have these back-to-back losses. And as the old saying goes, things come in threes, and from experience, it does happen that way. It may be a friend in the family may lose someone, and you lose someone in your family, then you hear another relative passing, and that definitely takes more of a toll on you. It forces you to have even more profound of these symptoms happening to you. Yeah, 3 deaths in 1 year, and like I said, I know how that is when it's back to back. It's like as soon as you think that you're dealing with the first person death, all of a sudden, bam, you get news that someone else has gone, and you're just like, God, God help me, get through this. And that's when it's important to have those friends and family members, there to help you. And I also want to point out another point of coping and coping in a healthy way is make sure, and this is for you, Tanisha, as well, and Cliff, everyone on here, that you do take care of yourself, as well as getting support from friends. It's very important that you don't turn to drugs or alcohol or anxiety. And I know it's easier said than done, but I'm just want to make a point. You don't want that to be your end result. You don't want to turn to drugs and not take care of your physical self. Another point I want to point out is to express your feelings in a tangible, creative way, such as I'm on here and I'm voicing how I feel, and it just happens to be one way that I'm able to do this is via Facebook Live, or just any type of media form, or whether I'm writing or on television or talking to friends. And like Tanisha said, you turn to social media. These are all effective ways to express how you feel, because I feel like you need to get out how you feel, even if it's writing a letter, or writing in a journal, or even getting involved in something that person may have liked. If they passed a breast cancer, working with Breast Cancer Foundation or Susan G. Komen Foundation, something like that, something that person would have wanted to be a part of. Those are all healthy ways to cope. Again, you should look after your physical health, because people tend to let that go. When someone passes, like I said, people turn to drinking and smoking and all these things that's not going to really make that much of a difference. Well, I don't want to say make a difference. It can make a difference, but just not in the way that you're hoping it to do. You're just numbing away certain feelings, and as I said, you need to express your feelings, not numb your feelings through substances and things like that. Again, don't let anyone tell you how you should feel. As I said, people want to tell you how long you should grieve. They also shouldn't tell you how you should feel, because again, how you feel is how you feel yourself. You can't let no one else tell you, you shouldn't be crying. If you need to cry, you need to cry. If you feel like laughing, as far as looking back at memories of this person, then that's what you should do. If you feel like you need to scream, which I have done before, I've gone outside and screamed in the middle of the air. Why did this person have to go? I feel like you should be able to do that too. A third point, or so I should say, is plan ahead for triggers. Like for me, I know Father's Day is coming up, so I already know that I'm going to be emotional wreck because I lost my father, and every year every day actually, I'm reminded of his death. But more so obviously on Father's Day, when I see everyone else saying, oh, I'm going out, with my dad, I'm going out to eat with him, I'm going to visit him. Obviously, I can't do that. I mean, I can visit him, but I'm not going to visit him to hug him. I'm going to visit him just to lay a flag down and send my prayers and stuff to him, which is definitely not, the same thing. I only wish that I had the opportunity to do that. So, that's just another thing. If you know the triggers are coming, try to, as best as you could, try to prepare yourself emotionally and mentally for that. And also, if you are going to visit the person, like I said, how I go visit my father on certain days, sometimes for his birthday or, for Father's Day, holidays like that, make sure you plan it with other people. Have other family members, there with you to help honor that person that you love very much. Try to get yourself a little bit together before. So, Tanisha said, that's the topic. I don't know how to deal with that. I'm trying to focus just on grief and loss right now. That's not my, rape is not something I really want to, forgive me, to get into. I may bring that up if I have a, expert, on here to talk about that. But I do want to stick with just with grief and loss, even though that is in itself something that is a grief and loss. But I don't want to delve too much into that because it's not something I'm informed as much about. I do know a little something, about it just from personal experience, but I don't want to get into that tonight. But because you did mention it, I do want to have that as a radar, and I will put that, down as a topic. But I do want to bring someone else on for that because it is beyond my realm to discuss. I just want to get into these different symptoms and ways to cope with grief and loss, and hopefully, what I am saying tonight will help you in that situation as well. And I don't want you to think I'm just nicking you off or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't have as much experience in that category, and I don't want to say something that may trigger something in you for that for that topic. And Father's Day does bring up a lot of different a lot of feelings for a lot of us, no matter what what we experience, whether our father was there or not, or our father harmed us or not, or abused us. It's something that that is carrying with all of us. So I just want you to know that I do know others that were in your situation as well, and not just by their fathers, but by brothers and cousins and things as well. And if I could, I would like to get their input as well, because they'll definitely be able to help you as well more than I could, because I haven't personally experienced that with a father. So, and I'm sorry that that didn't happen to you, because you obviously didn't deserve that. But again, I don't want to delve too much into it. I just want to focus just on the grief and loss situation because of what happened this especially because of what happened this weekend with the Orlando massacre. So I thought people really need to hear that, hear different ways that they can deal with grief, because it's been so much of it. It's been so much loss going on, especially this past week. So I wanted to make that a big topic for me this week, and it's also Father's Day, because I won't be on again by the time Father's Day comes. So I just wanted to get into that. They also have another form of grief that's called complicated grief. I don't want to get into too much of that either, because that deals with depression. That goes into when a person feels like they have the inability to function, sometimes feeling like they can no longer stay alive. They're still feeling the loss of this person even after like a long period of time. So in those cases, I feel like you do need to see a mental health specialist or a psychiatrist. And again, please don't feel bad going to see a therapist. I hear a lot of people say, oh, like I said before, you're viewed as a certain way. But then again, those people who look down on therapists, they're the main ones that probably need the most help. And they're looking down on something that is supposed to be a positive thing. Something quick I want to add. my coworker brought up today when she found out about the loss of my aunt. She said, it's all great to think about the good times that you have with someone, the good memories and the laughs, but also think about the lessons that that person gave you. And I said, that's true. Think about the guidance that that person may have given you, be it a parent or friend or relative. Think about that as well. And I also want to say that anything I'm on here discussing tonight, I'm referring to adults. Speaking to children about death is obviously something else. So I want to just say that, if you're speaking to a child about death, I went on the website parents.com as well earlier, and they had a number of helpful tips as far as teaching children how to say goodbye to loved ones, because there's a balancing act there, knowing what to say and not to say, and it's definitely a challenge talking to children versus talking to adults or dealing with these issues as an adult. It's very different for children. I just want to give, again, very quickly, these last 3 quotes that I just want to have you guys to have in your head. The first one is, death, the last step. No, it is the final awakening. And that was written by Walter Scott. The second one I have is by one of my favorite poets. His name is Robert Frost. He says, in 3 words, I can sum up everything I have learned about life. It goes on. And that's it's just sticking to my head, those last 3 words. It goes on. And that's very true words from Mr. Robert Frost. The third quote I want to say is, for death is no more than a turning of us over from time to eternity. And that is by Mr. William Penn. And I very much agree with that as well. I know not everyone believes in a heaven or hell and things like that, but I'm not necessarily the most religious person, but I am spiritual being, and I do know and feel and strongly believe in my heart that once we leave this world in the physical form, we are spirits, and I feel like those spirits are still around us, of our loved ones. I feel like I feel my father all the time, and my grandparents, and also my aunt who just passed. So sometimes we have to just change how we look at death as well. We look at it as such a negative thing, because obviously we're hurting and we miss the person, but you also have to see in any darkness the light that comes with it as well. Sometimes it helps to think that the person is still there, but they're just here in another form. You may not be able to see them, but you're able to sense them. So sometimes it's just switching the gear in your mind, knowing that the person is still here, especially within you and your spirit. In my case, my father passed, so every day half of me is looking at him, and my mom would say, I definitely act like him, acting stubborn and wanted to have things my way and stuff like that. She's like, you're definitely your father's child. I'm like, I hope so. After all this time, I hope I am. But I'm just ending my scholar talk. Again, I'm hoping that I did help you guys. Again, Tanisha Sims. I am hoping that I did help you somewhat, even though like I said, I couldn't delve too much into into rape and Father's Day. Though I know the volume of that, but I will get into something later on, because that is a whole nother topic to get into, and I won't be doing it justice just talking about it briefly here and not having the right insight and input that I would like to have before I try to give my advice on that. So again, I hope I help you guys out there. Hope you did learn something about grief and how to deal with grief, and discover if you yourself are still in a certain stage of grief, or you're not in a certain stage of grief, and that I just did some justice for you, that I did help you, or you can share this information and pass it on to someone else. So again, hey Sour Boy, thank you for joining as well. Thank you all for joining me this evening in my 4th Scholar Talk show. Again, I'm on here each and every Monday at 7:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there, all the fathers, that's out there. I will be doing another post within the week, and of course on Father's Day, in memory of my father and grandfathers and uncles and cousins and all of those guys, stuff like that. Even my friends as well who are parents. But I just want to give a shout out since I won't be doing another Scholar Talk until obviously next Monday after Father's Day. So shout out to all the dads out there, single fathers as well. You know, I have to put you guys out there the same as the single mothers, same way they do on Mother's Day. So thank you. God bless and enjoy your evening, guys. Talk to you soon.